Now, Business Secretary Grant Shapps has said that Liz Truss's approach towards the economy clearly wasn't correct after the former Prime Minister said she was never given a realistic chance to enact tax cuts. Meanwhile, allies of Rishi Sunak branded her delusional and warned that further interventions will cost the Conservatives the next election. Well, joining us now is former campaign manager to Jeremy Hunt, Rory Welsh. Very good morning to you, Rory. I suppose the fact that we've got Boris Johnson out on manoeuvres and now Liz Truss on the front page of the huge broadsheet for the second day in a row really speaks to the problems within the Conservative Party. And as we were saying there, it almost is a sign that they think they're not going to win the next election.
What it certainly signals is that there is a gap on the right of the party, and it seemed that Sunak has gone for this largely centrist line, which is reinforced by the fact that he has a largely centrist chancellor in Jeremy Hunt, and there seems to be a perceived appeal from Conservative MPs that there is a vacuum on the right, and I think you're absolutely right in identifying the two people that are trying to fill that. And Liz Truss trying to rehabilitate her image is an attempt to be able to fill that perceived void. But the audience she's playing to, how big is that void on the right? I mean, who does it constitute? Is it powerful enough to make any difference, or is Sunak playing it right? I think that you need to think about it in terms of red wall versus blue wall. Mm-hmm. And the red wall is going to constitute a lot of what supports that perceived support on the right. However, the reality looks to be now that a lot of them aren't going to have their seats. So a right government would be well observed to look at those blue wall seats and focus on that. And perhaps there are a lot of outspoken supporters on the right, but perhaps the strength isn't as much as the headlines might suggest.
And essentially, she's just saying, look, we need to go for tax cuts. I mean, is she right to say that? I think pretty much every Conservative would be in favour of tax cuts, but it's all about the timing. Is she right that we need to do it now?
It is a very difficult thing to pose tax cuts in this. I talked last week about how an inflation cut needs to come before a tax cut. Every Conservative at their core wants to cut tax, but that does not mean that it should get necessarily. It's a wise idea to railroad it through any available opportunity. And indeed, it's perceived by many in the party that her unwillingness to be pragmatic about that is what caused the inevitable downfall. Grant Shapps, as you mentioned, being one of those.
So what's she trying to do? I mean, is she delusional as she's being painted, or is she, again, trying to look for a comeback?
I think it would certainly seem that she is looking to make a comeback, and she's taking a broadly two-pronged approach to this, which is she's trying to rehabilitate what she's already done, her famously short term in office. And the other interesting thing she's doing is trying to position herself on foreign policy. And these past few days, she's been talking quite a lot about China. Back in December, she met US Republicans, and she's used this China spy balloon issue as well as the Taiwan issue to position herself in this realm, which she's never really spoken a great deal about, or at least not at the forefront, and so maybe is using that as a slight comms diversion tactic.